So climatic change is actually a major driver of why we should actually industrialize and do it in a green and sustainable way. I spoke earlier to say if you look at African countries, because of the levels of development that we have, we are the lowest polluters of our planet. And yet, we still bear the brunt of what's happening elsewhere in terms of climate change. Mozambique is a good example because here we feel all the effects. The cyclones, Cyclone Idai, I think it was the biggest, but there have been others after that. And also, if you look then at COVID-19, which was a health shock, but ended up being an economic shock, you could see the disruptions that we see in terms of supply chain. So we couldn't get the products that we needed. And that speaks to the question of why can't African countries actually start producing some of these products? We should not be importing, for example, masks. We can't produce that, but because we don't have the technology, we don't have the capacities to do that, it's a challenge. So what we are, for the past this week, but also in the next coming days, what we're going to be discussing is how can we invest in those, technologies, capacities that we start producing a lot of the things. We should not be importing a lot of things from outside because, of course, if we have another event like COVID-19 where, there are disruptions in supply chains and so on, we will be in problems. So this will help African countries to be more resilient to themselves. But at the same time, I think we can trade amongst ourselves because if the borders closed elsewhere, beyond Africa, at least the borders within Africa will be able to trade ourselves. So it is actually something that's very helpful. It will help us, like I said, become more resilient, but also we will be much, much stronger in responding to economic shocks that we often have seen, either through climate change effects or events like COVID-19 or even currently the Russian and Ukraine crisis. I think I referred to this a little bit at the beginning, is really to find action-oriented recommendations. What exactly I would like to see at the end of the day, what exactly are we coming away with? What should, for example, Mozambique be doing in terms of its industrial policy, for example? Is it speaking to the green issues that we're talking about? Or because you have vast amounts of resources, whether it's gas, it's water, it's electricity, what exactly will it begin to do? But beyond governments, I think the most important aspect would also be what the rest of us will be doing, whether it's the United Nations system, but also the private sector that can actually invest. So if we're clear as Southern Africa in terms of what the priorities are, maybe for the next 3 to 5 years, then it's easy for us to start working on all of that. And that's basically what's going to help us move towards a green industrialization.